Do you ever walk through IKEA, fall in love with a bunch of pieces, but then by the time you bring it all home, it kind of just doesn't feel right together? Don't worry, we have all been there. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to turn budget IKEA into a stylish, cohesive, and designer looking living room. We're going to cover all the basics from choosing your anchor piece to blending styles like Japandi and mid-century, and all those little styling tips that really transform a space and make it feel put together. And by the end, you might even be questioning whether or not it's really all IKEA. Before we jump into it though, make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe if you'd like to be a part of more design adventures. IKEA has really transformed in the last couple of years. They've gone from just a budget basic furniture brand to somewhere you can actually genuinely get really nice designer dupes and more personalized pieces. You can choose a lot more different options these days, and it's a little less DIY if that is what you choose. One of the biggest additions that I think is fantastic for those of us that want to get a really great visual as to whether or not something works together is their Ikea Kreativ visualizer tool. And that's what we're going to use today alongside with some Photoshop to really make this living room come to life. So the Ikea Kreativ tool has a few options to choose from where you can build your room, use one of their starter rooms, or even take a photo of your own space. Today, let's use one of their rooms to transform. For this space today, I want it to feel soothing, but have a little bit of that designer edge. So not completely soothing and completely harmonious. I want there to be a little bit of tension. I also want to incorporate some mid-century and Japandi and maybe some modern elements as well. So before you even so much as start on your own room design, think about the design styles that you truly like. Is there anything in particular that you may already have as well that you might need to tie in? And then choose 2 or 3, no more, no less, to create this space. Why 2 or 3? Well, if you only choose one, it ends up getting set in a very specific era, so a very mid-century era, and so then anything that doesn't really work with that will feel like an eyesore.
You look so orange.
Anything more than that you can do, but it tends to get quite busy and messy at times. So 2 or 3 is the sweet spot for a beginner, and it's very easy to go, okay, this feels mid-century, I think this is what I like, let's go with this. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about layering interior design styles like this, make sure you check out this video afterwards. So our living room is looking very bare. Usually what I like to do is start with some of the larger pieces first. So today we're going to start with a sofa. And because I know that I want a very soothing and calm sort of space, I'm kind of thinking about going a little bit bold with this one. And the reason why is that it's really important to have an anchor piece to have a little bit of contrast with. If I was to go with a fully cohesive space, you would be like, okay, it's nice, but there's nothing that really catches your attention, really makes you go, ooh, this is really interesting. And so you can do this by using a different color, a different material, sometimes a different design style type. And so that will be our like feature anchor piece that will kind of allow for everything else around it to be much more on that calmer sort of side. So today I'm going to go through some of their sofas, and I know that they've done some really great ones recently, part of their Stockholm collection. So I'm going to choose this one because I absolutely adore it. And I personally don't usually use a lot of browns in my design, and I really want to challenge myself today. So this dark brown will be a really nice contrast to everything else.
What a beautiful chocolate man.
Next, let's choose some armchairs. I usually would go with a rug at this point. However, I do want to discuss armchairs first. Armchairs are super duper important for creating a bit more of a statement. Because they're more of a standalone piece, sometimes you only have one, maybe 2. This is where you can allow the design style of your preference to really shine. Even if you have a very modern couch or a bit of a bleh couch, it's not really much of anything. If you get yourself a really nice armchair, this completely transforms the space and makes it feel a lot more intentional and designer. So I really love these mid-century ones. I know that they're a bit darker than what I was envisioning for my space, but the earthy, rich olive green is just calling for me. Honestly, I don't mind this because they're still natural colors, so I think I can lighten this up afterwards. When it comes to rugs, you do usually want to go larger than smaller. Smaller tends to make the space feel tighter and not quite right. And think of it this way, you're pretty much just zoning that area as to what you do in that area. So if the entire living area is for conversations, is for watching movies, you want to zone that entire area, not just a coffee table. You can always go a little bit smaller if you're wanting to create a cozier space, but oftentimes it's better to go larger. So I like this rug here. It's definitely giving me a bit more of that Japandi vibe and some more of those organic sort of elements. And I really do like how light it is. It's just going to lift up these other colors that are a little bit on the heavier side. We've got some really bold colors going on at the moment. However, if we were to choose something like a walnut timber, it would end up all blending in together and it would lose that intensity. Instead of that walnut color, I'm going to go with the oak look furniture. And one thing that you can do to ensure that you get a bit more of a designer look is to ensure that you choose different items from different ranges. Although they may all have that oak timber look, if you choose ones from different ranges, it makes it feel less matchy and creates more of this polished sort of look. So if you have a Malm dresser in your bedroom, don't go for the Malm bed head as well. Opt for something else or something different that you like, and this will create that level of variety that a space requires to make it feel more intentional. If you are uncomfortable with potentially going into a different range, it's okay to have maybe 2 pieces, but that would be as much as I would personally recommend, because then it does just feel a bit flat. Also, if you are interested in any of these furniture pieces, they will all be linked down below for you guys to check out a little bit later. But now let's add in some curtains. I admittedly really like to go with a very plain curtains, like, white or just a solid color. Sometimes I'll play with texture like a velvet, but admittedly I am a little bit on the safe side. Looking at this space today, it does feel a bit flat, and what it probably needs is either textural difference or a pattern. And today I'm going to use a pattern to really just add a little bit more into this space. So I'm going to choose this one. This one looks great because it's still got that gray-green sort of look. It ties in nicely with the armchair. And you might be questioning, Tash, why in the world would you choose this pattern over polka dots or zigzags or something else entirely? And that is because of the bookcase that I selected. We'll discuss this in just a moment. Let's have a little look at the space now. So currently it feels very warm and harmonious, and that is looking nice. However, a designer is really good at playing with color and tension. Because I have 3 somewhat warm natural colors, a great way to add a almost unexpected twist to the space is to add in a cool toned color. So I am going to choose this baby blue console. Now you might be looking at this and going, Tash, what in the world are you doing? This does not look right for this space. And this is what I was just talking about beforehand with the curtains. One of the biggest things that designers are very good at is referencing. Us humans absolutely love patterns, and so having something referenced throughout the space, whether that be color, texture, material, even design styles, will make a space feel cohesive, but also intriguing as well. So with that curtain beforehand, the pattern shape looked very similar to the bookcase. And then it also had that slight green look, which really tied in nicely with the armchairs. Now that we're looking at this baby blue console, we're going, this does not reference anything. Like at most, at a very big stretch, maybe the bookcase, but even then it doesn't look quite right. And that is because there is no referencing in the space currently for this blue. And just as an added bonus, referencing is great for furniture pieces that you cannot get rid of for whatever reason, whether that be financial or just emotional reasons. If you have something in your space that just doesn't feel quite right, you can look for materials or pieces or colors that will tie that in back into your space, so then it actually feels like an intentional piece and not just like some sore thumb.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
To really build on this style and really bring the vibe to this space next, we really do need to think about lighting. My personal rule of thumb is to use at least 3 and go from there. This does not include any pendants or above head lighting, so I'm going to choose 4. I'm going to choose a pendant light, and then I'm going to choose 3 lamps of varying heights and sizes to really bring the space all together. Lighting is honestly probably one of the easiest things that people can do to change their space because it creates the vibe. If you were to go to a bar at night and it just had hospital down lights, you'd be like, this isn't it, and you'd leave. And that is the exact same with our homes as well. We've got all these downlights and such, and they just are not the vibe. If you are to choose anything in your space to really make a big impact, sometimes lighting can be that thing that really takes your space from it's okay to, oh, this feels really comfortable, this feels really inviting, and just go for something that has a slightly warm color. So 2700 Kelvin is usually what I personally go for, but somewhere around that range is usually ideal. Okay, let's find a pendant and something that's more mid-century or Japandi feeling to them. Okay, I really like these four, and again, we're doing some referencing, which I'm sure you can see a few references here and there. But the other thing as well is I've split it down the middle. I've got 2 Japandi styles and then 2 mid-century styles. Unintentional, admittedly, but when you are trying to blend design styles together, there will usually be one that takes the lead, and then there'll be the others that will kind of be in the backseat. So in this space at the moment, it definitely seems like my mid-century style is coming out as per usual, but there are a lot of Japandi elements that are coming through with some more modern sort of effects. So this is definitely really coming together nicely. Of course, that baby blue console does not look quite right still, but because of that chrome having that cooler tone as well, it does tie in a little bit with that baby blue because it's a cool toned piece. I would say now that we have all of our major aspects covered, we've got our seating, we've got our tables, we've got storage options, we've got lighting, we can now look at decor, which is always the most fun bit. And this is where we're going to better tie in that baby blue console and really intentionally layer things in together. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see when people are decorating with IKEA is that they go with the most popular and the simplest items. Now, this is not to say that if you like the popular items that you're not allowed to use them. You are, but it has to be specific to you. Does it actually make sense in your space? Do you genuinely like it, or is it just because it's popular? If it's just because it's popular, I would highly suggest looking at the rest of their range. They have gotten so much better with their range, especially in terms of decor, having some more limited edition items, some just more funky and weird things that are going to speak to some people and not speak to others. And it really creates a much more diverse and intentional looking space. I would highly suggest, especially when it comes to decor, to go through this on the website because you can obviously filter everything down and you'll make sure that you don't miss anything. IKEA is so huge, especially in store, and if they're missing something, you won't even know it. So my suggestion, especially for something as small as this, is to do it online. The only unfortunate thing with IKEA at the moment is because they have expanded their range so much, the IKEA Kreativ is kind of suffering a little bit. So there are some pieces that just haven't made it on there. So that's part of why I'm using Photoshop at the moment. But it is a really great, just basic tool to see, okay, does this work in this sized space, and just get visual ideas as to how it's going. Overall, it's actually not that bad of an app. I actually don't mind it. It just needs a little bit of updating still. Now, when we're shopping for decor, of course, I want you to display items that you already have and that you already love. But when you're actually shopping for decor, one of the biggest things is to reference. And of course, this has probably been like the main thing in this entire video. However, the balance with referencing is to not go all in on just the most specific version of it. So a very, very good example of this is in early 2010, we had like the red wall epidemic, as I like to call it. Everyone was doing a red feature wall, and then the way that they would tie it in is that they'd have the same color red in all the decor pieces. Now, overall, this is not a bad thing. This allowed it to tie into the rest of the space, so it wasn't just some random giant red wall. But the problem was that people were choosing colors that were exact matches, and unfortunately that ends up feeling too matchy-matchy, like we spoke about beforehand. What you want to do is you want to vary the size of them, you want to vary the color, you want to vary the scale. So if you're doing a pattern as an example, you want to vary that scale of the pattern. So sometimes maybe you'll have a cushion that's a lot smaller of a scale in comparison to the much larger artwork. It's a bit of a balancing game, admittedly, to try and figure out, does this work in the space or not? But if you tie it in with one, maybe two pieces that you already have with these larger items, usually it'll tie in nicely. Because I have this baby blue console that still does not fit in this space, I'm going to look for some blue decor that'll tie this all back in together. And as I said, there has to be a little bit of variety, so I'm not going to be super stringent if the color isn't just right. But when it comes to decorating a sofa, one of the easiest ways to just elevate it a bit is to do 2 cushions and a throw. Nothing more, nothing less. Obviously, you can do way more cushions, you can do way less depending on your preferred style, but the reason why I'd suggest this is that it is a grouping of 3. And you may have noticed this in design or art or in other areas in life, that groups of 3, or at least groups of odd numbers, work really nicely together. If you do an even set of things, it feels too matchy-matchy again. It's very weird. I know, like, it's just like, okay, we do want some level of matchy-matchy, but we don't want too much of matchy-matchy.
Right.
I really like this blue. It's a little different to that baby blue, of course, but that is totally okay. And I've gone for another pattern again. This pattern from afar looks kind of similar to the pattern that we have been referencing throughout the space. The scale is just a lot smaller. When it comes to decorating with cushions, if you are not someone that really loves pattern, that is okay, but I would still recommend at least trying to use pattern. Just make sure it's the cushion that's behind, not the cushion that's in front, to not get the full impact of that cushion's pattern. There we go, that throw looks pretty nice as well. That has a little bit of blue, it looks like, so that will tie in nicely. I will say Ikea still really needs to work a little bit on their art pieces, like their wall art and stuff is still kind of mid, I will admit. It's just, there's not much variety, there's not much choice. It's usually, the scale wise is too small. I understand that, of course, you know, this is a budget sort of furniture place, but usually I find that the scale for a lot of these artworks are a bit small, and if there was anything that I was going to choose that was outside of IKEA that I could, it'd probably be the artwork. But we're going to work with what we've got today, and we're going to tie in that blue again with these 2 little pieces of blue artwork. And then this really interesting fan piece kind of reminds me of Japandi, so tying in that Japandi again, which is fantastic. We are almost done, but no room is ever complete without plants. I genuinely feel like I mention this every single time, but plants are like the life force of the home. They really do add the wild back in that we've stripped out in our modern spaces. And if you are unsure as to where to start with plants, I do think IKEA is great with their faux plants. I don't think they're the best quality, but they're a good starting spot. And I would suggest starting with 3, just make sure you vary the height and the size of them. And finally, let's just go ahead and add in a bunch of decor to really tie it all in together. Again, using referencing, using colors similar to the space, and using things that I think will tie in nicely. And as a reminder, if there is anything here that you think will be perfect for your space, they will all be linked down below, so definitely check them out if that's what you would like. This space looks gorgeous, and I am so happy with how this turned out. But before we go, I do really want to give you one final tip about layout. Now, of course, we've spoken a lot about the design aspect around this space, and although that is very important, layout is just as important because it's the functionality of the space. Usually in most homes and most rooms, there will be 1 or 2 very obvious places as to where a sofa or a bed should fit. However, sometimes there are going to be a bit more obscure ones that you probably wouldn't think of initially. One of the best things to think of when you are thinking about the layout of your home is pathways. What are the pathways that you're going to be using, like a highway? So if you have a hallway, you've got to make sure that the hallway is unobstructed. If you have a medicine cabinet that you need access to all the time, you need to make sure that is unobstructed. And so if we look at this space here, we can see that I've made sure that the hallway is clear, the entry is clear, and even the potential patio is clear as well. And I've also made sure it's very, very easy for people to pretty much get to the seating from almost all angles as well. So just keep that in mind when you are playing around with your layout of your home. Use a software like this. This software is great for that. But if you want, you can also use just pen and paper and just draw it out and just get a really good understanding as to what the flow is like in your home and if you need to move anything anywhere. I really hope that this video has helped today. I hope you feel a little bit more empowered as to how to make IKEA feel super luxurious. And if you would like to learn a little bit more about blending design styles like we mentioned today, make sure you check out this video here. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about timeless looks, make sure you check out this one here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next design adventure.